And welcome to the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. It is August 26th. The year is 2019. And could we have the roll call, please?
Trustee Ankerman.
Here.
Trustee Charlo.
Fizzle.
Trustee Gagne.
Here.
Trustee Murkey.
Here.
Trustee Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Toll.
Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have the consideration of the minutes of the July 22nd, 2019 Village Board meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Marquis. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second by Mr. Grenier. Okay. So glad you did that, since you couldn't make the photo opportunity at 6. We missed you. Okay, are there any additions, corrections to this? None, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this point in time, the village board allows 15 minutes for anyone in the audience who might like to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have someone that would like to speak?
Hello. My name is Susan Hoagland, and I live at 341 Sylvan Road. I would like to thank my neighbors for being here as well. My husband and Peter and I have lived in this house for 33 years. We are one of the few homes that extends from East Sheridan Place to Sylvan Road. I'm here to ask the village to install a drain in our front yard within the village's right-of-way. We live in one of the oldest homes in Lake Bluff. Miss O and I established many years ago that allegedly Frances Willard lectured about the temperance movement in or around our house when she was a featured speaker at the Lake Bluff Camp Meeting Association in the mid-1800s.
And I know that we have obeyed that prohibition law ever since.
As have the neighbors.
I'm sure.
We have lived here since 1986. We have been faithful and loyal Lake Bluffers. We have asked the village for nothing. And over the course of these past 33 years, our water issues have become progressively worse. Up until the late 80s, Sylvan Road was a cinder road, porous enough to allow water to flow naturally into the ravine. In the late 80s, the road was paved. The water could no longer percolate through the ground, and the water issues began for Sylvan Road residents. In addition to paving Sylvan Road, there have been numerous building projects as well as house additions in the area that have added to the water issues. The village did the right thing. They started fixing the worst problems first. Over the course of 20+ years, the village installed a drain on Sylvan Road property from Glen to Moffett, except for ours. These drains allowed our neighbors to have access to a public drain for water to flow to the bottom of the ravine. We thought our turn was coming. We waited. Word came that Sylvan Road was to be repaved, most likely in a 2018 project. In October 2017, we sent a note to Jeff Hansen asking that the village consider installing a drain at that time while the road work was being done. The road was repaved, no drain work was included. In the intervening years, we have had a tree fall on our house due to rotted roots from flooding. Our basement has flooded. We have increased water issues on the south side of our house as well as the north, and we face a real risk of rotting structural damage of our 130-year-plus home, as we are one of the lowest properties on both East Sheridan Place and Sylvan Road. According to an email I received from Jeff Hansen, the village is focused on 1, keeping public roadways open and passable during a 10-year storm event for public safety, and number 2, ensuring that residents don't take in stormwater up to a 100-year event. My comment regarding issue number 1 is that the water that is flowing over our property creates a winter black ice event on Sylvan Road that is treacherous and unsafe for drivers and pedestrians. Sylvan Road is one of the busiest pedestrian streets in Lake Bluff. This past winter, a neighbor commented that he slipped on the black ice and separated his shoulder. We would like to go on record that this is indeed a public safety issue. And regarding point number 2, the 100-year rain event, it seems to us that every significant rainfall has been a 100-year rain event for us. We're in the process of having drains installed throughout our property. I have a permit number for you if you're interested. The water will flow off our property at the edge of Sylvan Road. We are asking that the village install a drain to take the water to the bottom of the ravine. This is the responsible thing to do. We are paying $30,000 to have this project done correctly on our property. We believe that the drain will eliminate erosion, prevent water runoff, and be a safer solution for the village. We are doing our part. We ask that the village do theirs by adding this drain project to their list of projects before winter sets in to ensure public safety. Thank you for considering. I have a packet of photos and a copy of this presentation for each member of the board.
Thank you, Susan, very much. As we know, this is a problem throughout the village, and we are looking to address it. What I can tell you at this point is that we will put this on the list, okay? It will be addressed and prioritized with all the others that we are getting to and for the new budget year and looking at funds. But it will be, as with all the others, seriously looked at and prioritized. That is what I can tell you right now. Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, what?
What does the list look like?
Who's, would you mind, do you want to speak? Would you all mind coming up here? I'm not,
What does the list look like?
sorry, I have a little hearing issue. It's all those years of yelling at kids, I guess. Okay, I have no idea. I have not seen it yet. That's in the hands of the administration. All I know is there will be quite a list. So it will be looked at and prioritized. That's, you know, that's all I can tell you at the moment. Okay? I wish I could say more, but I can't. I don't have that information.
Jeff, could you come up really quickly? The list, the good news, bad news, and more bad news really, is that the list continues to grow. After rain event, Jeff has spent an enormous amount of his time responding to neighborhood concerns, resident concerns about stormwater and stormwater issues. The village is completing a village-wide stormwater analysis about our infrastructure. Do you want to talk
Well,
about
when
that?
it comes to the public safety, the freezing on the street, we had a very bad winter last year for that, so it developed quite a few locations that we know of that are problems that happened. Last winter, we kept having it warm and rain, and then it would freeze, and the sump pumps would run, and we had several areas that Public Works had to salt repeatedly or even break several inch thick sheets of ice. We had noticed so far that Sylvan was a hot spot for that. The project that you're doing right now, you know, we don't really like that pop-up that close to the street, but because of the problems around your house, we're willing to permit that. That may change the ice situation on Sylvan going forward, and we'll keep looking at that. But we do have several areas in the village where we have lots of ice that shows up in the winter with sump pumps running, and we have to go through the budget process and see how large that budget will be and which ones we can knock off that list.
And Jeff, the stormwater study that's coming to completion.
Yeah, the larger village stormwater study is just dealing with undersized storm sewers village-wide. We have several areas, especially in the terrace neighborhoods, where we have street closures that happens and other home flooding, which is probably larger projects than what you're asking for. So that is a priority we're going to get later this fall. That study should be complete with some estimates on project costs, and it'll be up to us, I think, over the winter when we go through the budget to try to prioritize all the large projects and the small projects.
But to your point, the village board has been focused on fixing the worst problems first, taking over homes that are completely intaking water through significant storm events.
You know, yes, would come up, please come up. Thank you, Mr. Goldsberry.
I'd rather stay here.
Oh, okay, all right. It's just that
I just want to ask, we are on East Sheridan Place. Sylvan's right behind our home. We've been in the house we're in now for 48 years. And I've never seen the drainage as poor, storm drainage as poor as it's last 2 or 3 years. Might be the cycle of weather, might be the age of the infrastructure in town, but something's gotta be done. And putting them on a huge list and saying we'll get to it when we can really doesn't sound like a good solution for this particular case, in my opinion. I say that only because if you were to walk from the bridge by Glen down to the bridge near Briar or Gurney, whatever, the 2 crossover bridges, that stretch of Sylvan Road. Every resident on Sylvan Road has a drain by the road. So I don't understand why they don't have it. That house has been there a long time. I hope that you think about that as you look at this request, because I think it was well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Holstein?
I just would like to say something too. I've been on this road for a million years, and I am pushing 80, and I've been across the thing pushing 90. I have fallen twice on the black ice in front of their house. You gotta do something. It's really dangerous. And I've seen other people, so please think about us, 'cause we're all old.
Yes, I'm with you there. I get it. If, you know, I personally would love to say, yes, we'll get on it tomorrow. However, we also represent everybody in the village, and we get all out. And that's why I can say it will go on the list, and I don't mean to try to sound vague or push you off, and I'm not. But it will go, and it has to be evaluated with everything else. We've only got X amount of dollars. But believe me, we have heard you. I can't make any guarantees on anything. But it, you know, we will sincerely look at it as we do with everybody in the village, okay? Okay, I wish I could do better to say it tonight, but I can't.
It's a start.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak this evening? Yes, sir, come on up. Well, would you want, actually, the trick is only because we have this huge audience, you know, TV audience, and this is what this is for, so that you can be heard.
Thank you. I live next to the Holmgrens, and I've lived next to them for years and years and years. And they've got a serious water problem. Our water problem was taken care of, and there should be as well. And what I don't quite get in the conversation, and I'm trying to understand this, is when you say it's on a list and it's gonna and you're gonna evaluate it at some point. I mean, in what time frame? I mean, am I gonna, you know, will I still be here when the problem is addressed? I mean, i.e. above ground. I mean, it's somewhat indefinite to say it's going to be addressed. What's the time frame? What's your objective with respect to that, so we can say, you know, if it's 2 months or 6 months, you know, we've talked about this for 6 months, and are we still dealing with a list? How do you frame this issue?
It's really framed around the budget. Okay, money, as everything else, it's money. And so for next year's budget, we have, and I have no idea how large the list is, but there are several people that have come with numerous, and we are trying to tackle it. So it'll come to the list, and it will be evaluated, and where it is in the priority of seriousness. And I can't tell you, I am not an engineer, I don't know. But that's the best I can tell you, that in the upcoming budget, it certainly will be looked at and evaluated.
So at the time the budget is created and concluded, there will be a list of projects that will be for the forthcoming year.
There always are, there
Okay.
always is, yeah.
And so at that time, I mean, roughly when will that be?
So, yeah, the budget, the capital schedule gets examined in earnest January, February. That's when the projects, we're waiting for this village-wide survey of the infrastructure and looking at what other solutions exist for many other issues around the town. And so there'll be a list generated of projects and prioritized based off staff's and our consultants' expertise in stormwater management. And as Village President O'Hara said, there's only so many resources to be applied toward the project, so the projects with highest priority will be recommended that so. But ultimately, this group in front of you, the village board, will make that decision.
So in January, February,
And the budget is typically, the final approval of that document is late March, early April. So
Okay, but-
or May
but
1 fiscal year.
January, February, let's say the end of February, we'll know.
We'll have a
whether-
good idea of what's making the list.
Okay, and if it doesn't make this list, it's not as if the subsequent year's budget will contain it, is that correct?
It's a 2-year budget document, so it's a 2-year fiscal plan. So
Okay.
so it's possible that it could be within the next immediate year, but it gets placed, we have a capital plan that's a multi-year document. 5 years, 10 years gets a little blurry in the out years, but the idea is to try to have that long-range fiscal plan and how it fits in. And there's some projects, most projects are planned, engineered, and then constructed. So like one phase, 2 phase, 3 phase. So that's how these larger projects that Jeff Hansen, the village engineer, mentioned happen. This project's very small scale, much smaller, but nonetheless, these projects that are trying to take care of a number of households and address major issues, whether it's the 10-year road standard that they're trying to meet, the village is trying to meet, or the 100-year event, trying to address those. That's what this board has been focusing on over the last few years and really putting resources towards those projects.
Well, so from what you're telling me, we're in roughly February, let's say.
February.
Yeah, roughly February. Could be a little bit later, maybe a little bit earlier. The Hoaglunds and their neighbors will know whether that problem is going to be addressed. If you choose not to, that doesn't necessarily mean in the next budget cycle it will be addressed either. Is that correct?
That's possible, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to speak this evening? All right, the village finance reports. We have the warrant.
We have 5, Kathy.
Oh, I'm sorry, what did I do? I said the order, number 12, that's right. A request to move item number 12 up, which is a resolution approving a site plan to modify a baseball field in Artesian Park. Let's get that out here. All right. Lake Bluff Park District and Youth Baseball Association are proposing to reorient Rosenthal Baseball Field so that the home plate is in the northwest corner closer to the field house. The project includes relocating a portion of the path to the northeast of the field, constructing new dugouts, installing backstop and sideline fencing, and relocating the spectator benches. The Architectural Board of Review considered these changes at their August 14, 2019 meeting and voted 4-0 to recommend approval. 2 residents from the neighborhood spoke at the ABR meeting. David Graff suggested the Baseball Association and Park District encourage participants to park at the middle school instead of Artesian Park, which they agreed to try to do. Also, Mac Wenck of 125 Ravine Avenue asked them to reduce the amount of stormwater runoff that travels eastward from the park. The ABR included a condition in their recommendation for approval requiring a small berm a few inches tall to be included in the evergreen buffer planting to prevent the water from going east at that spot. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Toll. Do I have a second, please?
Mr. Charlo.
Oh, Mr. Charlotte, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Oh, thank you.
I would like to comment on this item.
Well,
I thought you were making a motion.
No,
to say-
you second the motion for, we have a procedure.
A second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anchorman. Okay. All right, at this point, are there any comments from the trustees?
Yes, so I read closely this description, and I did not see in this description that this field was used for other uses than baseball specifically. And so I called Superintendent Jean Sophie to know if they had considered how the school is using that field. The comment from Dr. Sophie was that it was added benefit for the school programs, and she was absolutely for this event. Now we have other things that are done on this field, such as lifelink helicopters landing there, for example. I've been going to demos. I've seen that. That field was used for emergencies. Have we considered that? That would be my question.
Yeah, these changes should not interfere with that ability for the public safety demonstrations or the need for that if that's necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, as I understand, it's basically flipping home base so that it's not, when the ball's go by the more vigorous players, that it doesn't go into the street.
Okay.
And
And I do
spending,
understand that it will enhance the security of our children.
that's right, having watched that for 36 years from across the street at the middle school, it will, because the kids they'll run after the ball into the street, and of course, they're oblivious to any cars that are there. So I think it's primarily a safety issue. Any other comments?
Has there been
or
any
questions?
additional discussion as to the letter that David Graff, as far as parking concerns?
It's my understanding that the Park District, Ron Salsky, the Executive Director, and Superintendent from School District 65, Jean Sophie, have been in conversation about memorializing their arrangements for those fields with the use agreement for the schools to make it clear that they can use them on a regular basis, and I'm sure they'll work out indemnification and all those details, so forth, as well as, I think, my understanding is that the Park District is going to clarify that they get use of the parking for their needs. I don't know if the Park District has any more, or the Baseball Association. I mean, I know you're not the school district's reps, but I don't know if there's any further comment from.
No, I think we were in agreement at the meeting 2 weeks ago that we're going to do everything we can to cooperate to move those cars that are down by Troyer over to the middle school. The middle school is agreed to work with us, and we've always worked well together with the middle school. So I think we walked out of that meeting not thinking it was an issue.
I would just comment on, there are certain events that the middle school puts on which are extremely crowded and have lots and lots of cars and things there. The plays, some of the other events that go on at night. Has there been any discussion between the Park District and the school district about trying not to have certain ball games or stuff that would be night games at the same time that, say, the plays are going on, or something where the parking is just inundated?
I'll speak for the Baseball Association.
Mr. Cassidy, might you introduce yourself?
Yes, I will.
Please, thank you.
I'm Doug Cassidy. I'm the current board president for Lake Bluff Youth Baseball Association. Thank you for having us tonight. We already communicate pretty closely with the middle school and have been for years. I've been on this board for 9 years now, and with the school plays, the musicals, and all those great events, we will send out communication through our email. We have, I think, over 1,500 people on our email list to the community, and ensure that we're in coordination with the middle school. It's never perfect, but we usually get through it and figure it out. So.
That's good, okay.
I'd just like to add too, like I know on the travel, when they use the fields for the travel baseball, like we always get information on where to park when we travel to other fields. So maybe we could incorporate that in when people are coming from out of town. If they don't know where to park, we can put a blurb in there saying you can also park by the middle school or on the side streets or what have you.
Yeah, I totally agree, and we actually discussed that, especially over here on Troyer when the Graffs have people on their sidewalk. Usually those are people from other communities that don't know. And we can post information, basic information on our website as well, beyond just push communication. So we're very supportive of that.
Thank you.
Drew, is Prospect signed against parking on the street at all?
No.
No, it's not. Okay.
There's a sign. There's a sign right by David Graff's house that says no parking from here to the corner, but you can't see it because there's a tree in front, like there's limbs in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked.
Did you?
There's
Okay.
one. It's just hidden. It's way back in there.
Well, and we're talking about giving direction too, to say, please go park at the middle school. There isn't a suggestion. So these are all things that we want to work together on.
Yeah, if there is, I'd have to double check that it's actually on the books to make sure, you know.
Another
yeah,
mountain
I mean,
situation.
Yeah.
I was surprised because I've actually
Yeah.
parked right there.
Yeah, make sure it's on, yeah. Thank you, the communication has been great, we appreciate everyone working together,
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it as well.
absolutely.
Thank you. One last question, Doug, before you leave, when would this happen, construction take place?
Yes, good question. So we wanted to ensure that the village was comfortable with this, and we got the approval before we put really the deep work into this. As you know, we've been talking about this for 10 years plus. And really, to do it right, especially with the sodding, we have to do it in the fall. So that's why we've been moving quickly to get to this point here. You know, it's still August. But we are already starting the process to bid contractors and assess cost, of course. And so we would plan to start this as soon as later in September into October. Really, the grass is the priority. I don't think we can wait till the spring, just obviously because the fields are barely thawing by the time we get to opening day, as you all know. So we intend to move forward on this immediately.
Will there be a lot of digging?
No, there won't. Last year, we regraded Troyer, and we also did Quaid back in the neighborhoods. The lips on those fields were really bad, and it wasn't as extensive a project like this where you're flipping it, but we literally took those fields and regraded them. And so they brought in trucks and just smoothed over and flattened out that area. So I don't expect there to be deep digging. You know, Gary, you can probably speak to it better than I, but I think it'll be.
Okay. Well, actually, I would love to see some digging because, you know, that's the old town dump. Has great treasures under there.
Well, I know, but we want to make sure we don't
Disturb
add
any
a
of
lot
that,
of, yeah, we don't know what we're going to find, but we also don't want to add a lot of cost too. We are
No, I'm only
saving every
kidding.
penny to make it work, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a question about the grading of this thing. This is solving a problem that exists now? It's not something that's going to be created by the construction?
I don't think it's, the construction is going to create any new problems. It shouldn't. In fact, during the site plan review at the Architectural Board of Review meeting, there was a concern expressed by a neighbor due to the east.
Right.
And it's my understanding that there's actually going to be some stormwater improvements done to get water, some increased pipe solutions. They're adding drains in the outfield, I believe, as part of this project that will increase, will actually reduce runoff from this project.
Yeah, that was my main question was going to be, yeah, so where is the water going to go if it's not going to go? It will create problems elsewhere, but it sounds like it's being dealt with other drainage issues, so.
The drain tile, Jeff, yeah.
So the resident who expressed concern lives 2 houses in on Ravine, and water comes through the backyards of the houses facing East Sheridan and Ravine, and then it comes between his home and a garage of the new house that was built on the corner. I don't think this project isn't going to make it any worse because they're not grading anything.
Yeah.
Those small drains will help for smaller rains, but when we get big rains, I wouldn't expect any benefit from that because those drains will fill up almost instantly. He does get a portion of the park draining through 2 backyards and then through his yard and alongside his home, and he's had some water issues trying to get it out to the street. That little berm they're talking about, I also don't think that's going to do a whole lot for him. The problem is that, you know, you'd like that water to go to the channel running right through the middle of the park, and that is where our storm sewer goes.
Right.
But there's a slight rise between where these backyards come together, and then it goes back down into that channel. So there really isn't a way to just grade a swale or something and make sure all that water heads north into that channel. When I looked at the plan, I thought it was kind of drainage neutral because you're really just moving dirt from one side to the other.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, the little improvements will help in small storms, but I wouldn't expect much of an improvement in larger storms.
All right. Good, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? All right, hearing none. Any more? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to the regular agenda, which is the warrant report for August 1 through 15 and 16 through 31st, and July 2019 payroll expenditures. Expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $712,061 for August 1 through 15. Expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $84,790.23 for August 16 through 31st. Expenditure of village funds for payroll in the amount of $334,960.91 for July 2019, which are total expenditures of $1,128,643.75. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Meyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Toll. Any comments to our finance director? Questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Charla.
Aye.
Trustee Grenier.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
All right.
All right, we have the July 2019 financial report. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Ankerman and second by Ms. McKee. And Ms. Finance Director, could you give us the highlights?
Sure. The sales tax revenue on a cash basis for fiscal year 20 through May is $300,010,657, which is $26,514, or 9.3% greater than the same reporting period in fiscal year 2019. Home rule sales tax on a cash basis for fiscal year 20 through May was $91,166, or 2.4% less than the same reporting period in fiscal year 19, with annual administrative fees totaling $1,385. Building permit revenue for fiscal year 20 to date is $91,085, or $2,885 less than the last fiscal year for the same period. And the May through July fiscal year 20 general fund expenditures of $2,491,909 are $57,180 less than the expenditures for the same period in FY19. Current expenditures are consistent with or less than budget.
Any comments or questions from the trustees? All right, thank you. All in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're a little hesitant tonight. Okay. All righty, we have the village administrator's report.
I have no report this evening.
We have the village attorney's report.
No report.
Village president also has no report. Okay, with the exception of, sorry about that, of the appointment of Susan Ryder to the Joint Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. And subject to the consent of the Board of Trustees, the village president appoints members to the village's various advisory boards and commissions. The village president recommends the appointment of Susan Ryder to fill the last vacancy on the Joint Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals. And if approved, Ms. Ryder's term will expire on April 30th, 2022. Do I have a motion to accept? Consent, rather.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grenier. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by, excuse me, Mr. Charlot. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that is my report for this. We have the acceptance of the correspondence. All correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on July 19, 26, August 2nd, 9, and 16. Do I have a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Ms. Ankerman, and do I have a second?
Second.
And second by Mr. Toll. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have now a resolution approving a sign exemption request, 219 South Waukegan Road, for Anytime Fitness. Anytime Fitness is planning to open a 24/7 fitness facility in the spaces where Subway and Chase Bank were in the back of the Courtyard and Carriageway Shopping Center. They are proposing one wall-mounted sign consisting of channel letters on a raceway and a tenant panel on each side of the two monument signs. The sign code currently only allows one wall sign per lot, 2 for corner lots. Because of this, each time a wall sign is replaced in Carriageway, a code sign exemption is required. At their August 14th meeting, the Architectural Board of Review unanimously recommended approving the exemption and the sign program as presented. In preparation for the village board consideration of the request, the neighboring property owners have been notified of the meeting date, and a resolution has been prepared transmitting the ABR's recommendation. Pat Thomas of Anytime Fitness, as well as village staff, will be in attendance at the meeting to answer questions from the board. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Meyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Toll. Any questions, comments from the trustees?
I do have this question. I see that every time we do one of these in Carriageway, we have to do one of these exemptions. Can we do something, Drew, to perhaps change the ordinance so we don't have this extra work?
I didn't cue you to say that. But we're, in fact, the Architecture Board of Review is Mike, do you want to come up and talk about that real quick? His eyes lit up when you said that, but.
Yes, the ABR has been talking about that some this year, and we've actually talked about it a lot at our July meeting and had a consultant with Camiros who's drafted a draft revision to the sign code that the ABR is going to talk about some more at their next meeting on September 3rd. That draft revision would change the sign code, which right now limits properties to one wall sign per property, even if you're a multi-tenant property, although it allows 2 for corner lots, to go to a per tenant basis for signs so that you could have either 1 or 2 signs per tenant. And it also gives property owners the opportunity to do a master sign plan and get that approved in advance. So you know, they could have a master sign plan approved just like the Target outlots did, where they would only come for permit and not even come to the ABR then for each sign once they have the master plan approved.
Sounds good, thank you. Let's do that.
Sure.
Okay, we follow the process. It takes time. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I just had a question on the monument sign. Do we try to keep that consistent, where we try to keep that signage green? Or I know the Athletico one is blue, but is there do we have any kind of, do we look at that, the consistency of it?
I've brought that up to the ABR in the past, and their feeling was they were willing to allow different background colors on that. So we have several that are not the green there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Charla.
Aye.
Trustee Grenier.
Aye.
Trustee Markey. Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Okay, we now have a resolution approving a professional service agreement with Current Technologies for the village's computer station video monitoring project and waiving competitive bidding. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Grenier. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
And second by Ms. Markey. The village received 3 responses to a request for proposals to extend the village's video monitoring system to the Metra computer lot as budgeted in the last and current fiscal year. The project is consistent with the village's intentions to improve the train depot facility. This specific project is focused on reducing vandalism, deterring of crimes, and providing an added layer of security to our commuters, excuse me. The project will install 8 security cameras to monitor the metro station entrance, interior, platform, and parking lot, as well as 2 additional cameras at the public safety building to monitor the village green. After review of the 3 proposals received, staff recommends entering into an agreement with Current Technologies Corporation in the amount of $25,347.93 to design, furnish, and facilitate the project. Current Technologies is the in-use service provider for the video monitoring systems within the village. As the project involves both professional services and improvements to public facilities, staff recommends a waiver of competitive bidding accompanying the authorization of the agreement. Additional electrical, server, and networking work will be required outside the scope of this contract that will be within the village administrator's purchasing authority to approve. The total cost is anticipated to be under the project budget of $50,000. Installation is anticipated in September. Questions from the board?
One technical question. I assume when it says network camera, these are digital feeds, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just asking that they're digital and not analog.
Yes.
Thanks.
Anything that you might want to add?
Not at this time, unless there's any specific questions I can answer.
Well, I had a question about all of that information that's being gathered and kept for some degree of time. How are we going to address how long it's kept, who looks at it, and where does that information flow?
So we're looking at outside of whatever the law requires us for certain things, like our jail cells and this, is a 30-day retention policy. The video monitoring will take place both within the police station, and then also at our dispatch center in Highland Park. So they'll passively be able to observe that, as well as our staff here at the PSB.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question of community outreach also, because when I look online for this issue of cameras, there has been a few bike theft, including people that had twice their bike stolen, for example. So people have been very active on Facebook.
Sure, absolutely.
And so as part of this effort, I think there would be a lot of value to not only do the camera work, but also to do outreach to the community. You say, no, we have installed that. This is what we see today. So perception is also the perception of security, by the way. But having that also outreach would actually solidify that we take steps to take care of the community.
I think there'll be, notification will be put out about the enhanced uptown security that we have. Certainly, I think we're hoping that the installation of cameras will be an additional deterrent, particularly to bike thefts late at night. One thing that has happened in the last couple of years also, which has, I think, perhaps, and you can answer that, reduce something, is the new lighting system that we do have at the train station, which I appreciate coming home late at night from plays downtown. I mean, it's substantial. So I think, has there been some reduction?
Yes, so it's between clearing out some of the foliage around there, the added lights, and now the lights actually are going to help us with this project. They're going to allow us to be able to work with ComEd, and since there are our lights, to put those cameras up at those locations. So we're actually able to enhance this project a little better than we actually originally anticipated. So that's what we're hoping to complete as well. So it's actually helped even a little bit more with getting the lighting and the foliage removal there with reduction of crime.
So I think the combination of the cameras and with the lighting will help this, you know.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
Now, will there be any signage indicating that you're being, you know, there's a camera watching or something like that?
We had not considered that. It's something we could. You know, currently around the station, there isn't that. A lot of times these items do sort of not stick out, but do stick out, right? Sometimes that's good or bad, predicated on, you know, maybe we want to know a little bit, maybe not. So it's something to consider, something we can think about.
I'd certainly think about putting a sign right over the bike rack that says this area is subject to 24-hour video surveillance.
And we made that very much so as part of the project, like it must be the bicycle racks, and we made that very clear.
But if I mean telling the bad guys that with a big sign.
Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Trustee Grenier.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Sharla.
Aye.
An ordinance amending Title V of the Lake Bluff Municipal Code regarding the prohibition of gambling. This is first reading approval, so it would be a voice vote. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Toll. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Meyer, thank you. The municipal code currently prohibits gambling within the village limits, as well as the installation of video gaming machines used for gambling following the state's enactment of the Video Gaming Act in 2009. Recently, other Chicagoland communities have clarified their ordinances to ensure that new devices such as sweepstake machines designed to circumvent gambling bans cannot lawfully be operated. More details are included in the attached news article that you all received. The attached ordinance will clarify and affirm that the village gambling ban applies to these devices, as well as future such attempts to circumvent the village's gambling prohibition. Any comments, questions from the trustees?
I do have a little bit of a technical question. Maybe this is for the village attorney. I'm reading the new draft, and it says that gambling prohibited, except as specifically authorized by Illinois law or this code, all of the following acts, actions, and undertakings are unlawful. Is that language effective to stop what we're trying to stop? Because it seems to have the exception built into it that it's authorized by Illinois law. Want me to try that again?
Yeah, when you say it does say authorized by Illinois. So, for example, Illinois law authorizes charitable games at not-for-profit organizations that receive a license from the Department of Revenue. Those would continue to be allowed. This would not prohibit those types of events that have a separate license for that particular point.
Good. Maybe a little bit of a different question, though. Illinois law allows you to have these video gambling devices and so on, correct?
Unless it's prohibited.
Unless it's prohibited by Illinois law, or unless it's prohibited by us?
Right, that's why it says or this, right.
Yeah, local ordinance can't.
Or this,
prohibit.
okay.
That law, the Illinois law specifically authorizes municipalities to prohibit.
Okay, so you're pretty confident this will say you can't do this within the village?
Correct, I
Okay.
am.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have a question?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Charlo.
So, how does that affect, we talked about church lotto. How does that affect or cover or deny church lotto, for example, that is a form of gambling?
Want to speak to that?
There's a separate state statute, which is called the Charitable Games Act, which specifically authorizes those activities for not-for-profit organizations. And there's a whole procedure set up under the state statute for those to get licenses, and those are continued. We do not interfere with that process.
And the village code also allows for raffles.
Correct.
Charitable organizations perform raffles as well.
Okay, any other questions? All righty, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's first reading.
First reading, we'll come back again. All righty, trustees report. Trustees, anybody want to weigh in tonight? Okay. Executive session are the minutes of, what exactly are the minutes? What's the date? Thank you, of the July 22nd. Thank you. Unless there is a compelling need, I would suggest that we don't have to go into executive session for that. Is there an agreement with that?
No objection.
Okay, any objections to that? No. I didn't think so. Okay. So any questions or comments regarding those executive minute sessions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I would certainly, if you would like, consider a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved by
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Meyer, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Mr.
Second
Toll.
by Mr. Charlo. Thank you all.
Mr. Toll.
Mr. Toll, I'm sorry, a little trouble distinguishing the voices tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
We are hereby forthwith adjourned. Thank you all.
Oh, no, Peter, on the vote for the minutes, there was no motion.
Water everywhere.
Yeah, it's terrible.